Welcome everyone to today's FEAST webinar. Please keep your cameras and microphones off throughout the webinar. And if you have any questions during the presentation, you can just put them in the chat box, and we're going to answer as many questions as we have time for at the end of the webinar. And now I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Alli. Alli Spott-DeLazzer is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a licensed professional clinical counselor, and a certified eating disorder specialist with a private practice in Los Angeles, California. She has presented educational workshops at international conferences, graduate schools, training facilities, and hospitals, published articles in academic journals and trade magazines, co-chaired committees for the Academy for Eating Disorders and the International Association of Eating Disorders Professionals, created Shake It for self-acceptance, facilitated a carers eating disorder support and education group for more than a decade, and authored the book Meaningful, 23 life-changing stories of conquering dieting, weight, and body image issues. Alli is a true friend of FEAST and a friend of parents, and is a true honor to have her here today with us. Alli.
Thank you very much. Hi, thank you very much. All right, I'm going to go through Cassandra's instructional steps, so hold on everyone, just a brief moment, please. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to open up that. I'm going to go back to screen share. I'm going to go with that. Wonderful. Is it up, everyone? Can't hear anyone.
Yes, sorry.
Oh, good. No problem. So today's title is called Permission to Parent. Disclaimer, this webinar is for informational purposes only. Though I am a therapist, I am not providing therapy or professional advice today. The intention behind this webinar is to introduce or remind of the following: possibility. And I think that's something that when we're dealing with eating disorders, possibility doesn't feel necessarily even possible, let alone present, and yet it is. Regarding expertise, I really want to say that I'll give you a bit of my background, but I'm not coming from the spot of this is what you do and this is how it's going to work. I promise that. You actually are the expert of your family, your culture. There are so many individual realms that I simply couldn't be an expert of. So I want you to know that whatever I offer today, please feel free to take it in, tweak it, see how it works for you, and anything that doesn't apply, please feel free to pass over. And I'll give you a little more of why I just really invite those things. Background. Although Judy gave my professional background, I think that this piece actually kind of matters as to why I'm speaking on this today. Plus the story of how we got to me speaking on this today is kind of funny, and I'm going to tell it. So I've been treating people with eating disorders since 2007. When I started a traineeship at a residential facility, which was an incredible place to learn at. Prior to then, I had volunteered and moderated an eating disorder recovery listserv. For anyone who remembers listservs, that was a long time ago. I've been around people with eating disorders my entire life. This is, I'm actually outing something publicly right now that I feel comfortable with. My grandma used to go to the restroom anytime after dinner that we would share dinners together. I always heard she had some sort of an illness, a physical ailment. I believe she said gallbladder or something. Learned much later, probably not the case. So I really, between my professions, my environments, I live in Hollywood. Does that tell you anything? So I really have been around people with eating body image struggles for my entire life. In 2006, I started school to become a therapist, graduate school. It was not my first career. I opened my private practice in 2011, and I began a care support group then, primarily because and I'm very open about this, and I know that there are opinions about somebody identifying as recovered, and that's so okay. I am open, so I am recovered. I don't give details because the eating disorder can get so competitive. But my parents had no support. Karen Carpenter had really come into the news not too long before I came down with this mysterious thing in my family. So that was one of the reasons I started, and there were none in LA at the time, to my knowledge. I really wanted to support carers, and through the process, I actually found the most special affinity, respect, and actually love for carers. I side with Adele LaFrance on the word love. I'd always said to clients, I unconditionally positive regard you, which is in humanistic terms, love. So we have love. It's an appropriate love, but we do have love for our people and our interactions and the relationships. Again, it's different, but it is, I think, love. I made sure my third section for everyone, I don't know if anyone knows, but I have this book called Meaningful that Judy just mentioned. The entire third section is actually to carers. And I did this for a few reasons. Number one, I want you to know you're not alone. I want anyone reading the book to know they're not alone. I want hope to be present because I think it really needs to be. And then also, whether you are somebody suffering with struggles that range from quote unquote mild all the way through serious eating disorders, mild non-clinical, through the serious eating disorders, we often don't feel seen in the world. And so the third section really shows no matter how much you think you're not being seen, somebody's watching, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a parent, somebody sees you, often sees your pain, and doesn't necessarily know how to reach you. How today came about, and I'll stop with the personal stuff soon, but I'm just going to tell you guys, you have the most amazing advocate on your side. And Judy, I hope I hear a little bit of giggles over the camera. So I say to Judy, I don't have time to make a PowerPoint. Here's the PowerPoint. I say to Judy, I don't like to be recorded. I don't want to be recorded. Here we're being recorded. And how this came about actually was we were going back and forth with a bunch of different ideas of what I could speak on. So I went to the people who I thought could maybe give us the strongest idea, which was my family group. And it was a unanimous, please talk on boundaries, get them off the eggshells, give them some of what we experienced type of feedback. And so that is where today came about. From my group, they, with their permission, please know I share with permission. I want to read this out loud because I think it's really important for carers. Know that through this journey with your loved one, it is very possible that you will be encouraged by professionals to do many things that help your loved one that don't feel right and go against any logic or instinct you had in the past. Many times those with experience will be right. The rule book has changed. That being said, if your spidey senses are tingling because something just doesn't feel right, then give yourself permission to be curious, explore that, and consider making a change. There are no easy answers or singular paths. And again, that's from parents to parents. Learning objectives, and we'll talk more about the word parents and what that might mean. Viewers will be able to define the executive system, conceptualize at least one way to determine self-other boundaries, and utilize at least 2 phrases that can help to manage challenging boundaries. Outline. You don't need to look at this right now. This is kind of for later on. Judy, also, in case I run long, can you please give me a 5-minute timing toward the end? Terms. For this presentation's clarity and inclusivity, let's define the terms that we're going to use. Parent, for today, means any primary carer of someone with an eating disorder. And that may be a guardian, that may be a grandparent, whoever is in that role of caretaking, caring. It may, it can extend pretty far out too. Many of today will apply to people who aren't in the primary care position. So please know that this extends to you too, if that is you. Spouses and partners, a lot will apply. Child, we're not talking just minors. Child, I'm still my mother's child. I'm still my father's child. I'm 50. So a child can be any age, including adult. It's not restricted to traditional definitions. And same with parent. Please throw out tradition and just look at what is the function of either, and then we can kind of merge that in. Next, because loving someone with an eating disorder can be so complex regarding interactions, I want to get on the same page with basics. And please know that I'm going here because I think we lose track sometimes when we're really scared. And eating disorders can feel so scary. What are boundaries? I think that boundaries are there as limits for self or other protection. And I'm going to go a little crass and a little base with an example because I think it drives it home well. But let me read. A person protecting may be seen as, insert this, selfish, mean, insensitive, by the person receiving the limit. But does that make it true that the person is mean, insensitive, those things? No. Here's the crass example. Go back to dating. You're on a date and somebody makes advances that you do not want. Well, you stop them. That person then can become angry, insulted. They think you're selfish. They just rah. But was it? Does that make it true? No, you were protecting yourself and it inconvenienced someone else or went against what they wanted. Well, what they wanted wasn't in your best interest. Same with this little kid running in the picture. So let's say he darts out into the street. The hand flies out to stop him and he's mad because he was running with reckless abandon. Now, mommy, you're so stupid and mean. So boundaries are there to protect self and others. A fence. We may fence in, let's go with little lammies. You fence in beautiful little lammies and you hope you want to feed them right and nurture them and have them grow up and be strong, but things still come in. Things like diseases, things like bad moods, things like, even you can have someone like a coyote invade from the outside. We try to put up boundaries that help and protect. And when you are demonized for putting up boundaries, when the intention's good, sometimes that's the best we can go with. Now, can we get better at delivering boundaries with people with eating disorders? Quite possibly. And we'll get there. Sometimes you may meet the eating disorder part of your loved one, even within this fenced in lovely area that you've created, which can seem incredibly unfamiliar and different than who and what you knew thus far. Formulas. How to set, hold, and know your boundaries are right. That's a screaming sound because as much as I wish there was a guaranteed way, so much of this is about data collecting for your family, your culture, your person, and all the individual factors. Plus, field-wide definitions, recovery and recovered. We don't even have a general universal definition of those that we agree on yet. Approaches to healing. People really advocate with passion about what they think is the right way to heal. FBT, CBT, DBT, psychodynamic, nutritional weight restoration, first and foremost, and so many more. They are not universally agreed upon or standard yet. So you're in a tough position. And though guaranteed formulas don't necessarily exist, you do have superpowers as parents and carers. You have love, you have intuition. Even if you feel like it's gone, you have it. You have resources, you have relationships, and you have much, much more. Ideas to support you. Here are some of my favorites. Team up with professionals. I believe that you are part of the treatment team. Let me move this little window. I believe that you're part of the treatment team. Honestly, likely the most influential part. And I have to confess, I actually didn't really start my practice with that belief system. And I'm just so fortunate that I've gotten to see the beauty. And I don't mean like pretty, I just mean like the gorgeous souls that parents have. If your person is in your home, how many hours per week do you have with them versus me, the therapist, who may get 1 or 2 hours a week? 168 total hours in a week with 1 to 2 with me leaves you with 167, 166. So you have such influence. I wish I was magical and could be like, hey, this is what I can ask you to do at home and you're going to do it. You are likely the key support that can help them do the really hard things. And when I say hard things for someone with an eating disorder, I believe some of those hard things are eat, cry, talk about feelings. Excuse me. Feelings is a really hard one because the eating disorder often serves multiple, while it starts from kind of a genetic biological mix with environment trigger on button, it has adaptive functions. And one of the things it does is it kind of disconnects from feeling talk and even identifying internal things that are happening. So talking about feelings is big. And not knowing how to do hard things. People with eating disorders often are I love this population partially because they're amazing. As I'm speaking about people, does this match your people? Resourceful, smart, attention to details, could literally change the world. But the eating disorder takes a lot of those qualities and kind of uses them up. But once the eating disorder gets freed, they go back into the world as these incredible, full human beings. So not knowing how to do things can be very, very difficult for a person who's seen as like straight A's, super capable, all of those things. And I'll talk more about that. Oh, there we go. Okay, reminder, there are many variables out there. So as we loop back to treating with a pro, joining the team, if your spidey senses are tingling because something's going on and it doesn't feel right, please give yourself permission to be curious, explore it, and consider making a change. I loop back to this because sometimes you try to ignore being a parent. And what if your gut says, this person's not competent to treat my child? Your gut says, I need to investigate their background more. Your gut says, gosh, I don't think this is a match for my family. I invite you. I love when people ask me questions, push to ask me what they want to protect their family and know that they're making hard decisions for the right reasons. You have permission to parent, whatever age. People may not be able to call you back because of confidentiality, but we'll talk about that in a minute. If your loved one says no to including you in treatment, because I could tell that some of your brains were probably there. First thing is, before you react, as a parent, we react. First thing is curiosity. Get the data. How come? I'm so curious. How come you don't want me involved? Or, gosh, you don't think, I can think of some ways that might be beneficial, but could you think of ways why it kind of harms you? Like, why wouldn't you want that? It's okay to ask and get them talking about it because it might have just been a reaction from them. There's just a lot that can come from curiosity. It can be your friend as a parent. Age. What age are they? I'm sorry, if they're under 18, you kind of have a right, not even kind of. So are you paying? If they're adults, if you're paying, I believe that you have a right to some aspect of inclusion. Are they living at home? Well, how can they take 1 hour here and apply it at home? Sometimes they can, because there's no formulas. There's no one way. But if the home can be supportive, I want them to have that support so that they're surrounded by shared philosophies. And if you're not included in the treatment, how can we support in a unified way? The eating disorder loves when we split and they can get us to do different things, but unified really can be helpful. Do you have a good relationship with your person, or did you have a good relationship before the eating disorder? If you did, that may be something to draw on. If it's absolutely no way can you come into my individual therapy and you decide that that's okay, family therapy, maybe you guys can do something separate. Maybe the whole family meets, or you with the different subsystems of the family. Just know that there's other options. Sometimes a parent may call me and screen early about, will I include them because they've not been included? And I think that that's really valuable, but you do probably want to vet the provider because on the check boxes, anyone can check that they treat eating disorders. So calling and asking those questions can be helpful. Also doing your own work. If you feel just sometimes locked out, overwhelmed, even though it's yet another commitment, doing your own work can be helpful, because when we loop back to those hard things like talking about feelings, setting boundaries, using different phrases that get offered to you, if they're uncomfortable, sometimes having your own space to work things out and get it in your body and get it comfortable can really help you to then put that in front of your person. I hope all this is making sense. For realistic boundaries, and keep in mind, I did this presentation for the range of where people are. Like, what is the perceived level of recovery right now? Is this person completely in the anosognosia where they're like, I don't have an eating disorder, where they're really, really sick and you know they're sick, but they don't think they are? Are they open to recovery? So that can influence what boundaries you set. What are the threat, risk, and safety factors? That can also influence boundaries. Someone who repeatedly makes big threats without having ever taken an action might be somebody different than someone who's really harmed themselves or done something super dangerous. So we do want to look at the whole context, and risk and safety is always kind of at the forefront. What is your own ability for follow through versus line in the sand? This is one of the hugest for parents, I think. And again, carers, parents are interchangeable. If you're going to say, then this is going to happen, every time then this is going to happen doesn't happen, it removes trust. And I believe that that then kind of accelerates more of a chaos and a limitlessness. Sometimes people are pushing for actual boundaries where that safety is. Remember that fence. Remember that hand that flies out with that kid running in front of the car. Boundaries are safety, but you have to come through. Can you align with and lean on the team of professionals? Are you guys aligned? Do you have an open channel? Can you lean in if you're scared? Can you call them? Different stages of healing and ages will constitute the different boundaries. And that loops back, earlier when I said perceived level of recovery, that's kind of, does the person even believe recovery's possible? That can influence boundaries sometimes. How you say and set boundaries, of course, can matter. And a lot of us are not taught how to set boundaries with love. And I loop back to, I actually really learned a lot when I was in my treatment center. There was this one girl who was super popular with the clients. And I was like, I don't understand. And I was terrible at setting boundaries. I was the super punishing one. I was like, no, because it was really hard for me to say no. So I would like kind of roar it. And this girl was just amazing. She'd be like, no, I understand that you want that. And no, that's not good for you. No, I understand. And she was never condescending. And it was so gentle and so loving and so repetitive, but never ran out of love. And she just held. I learned so much by watching her. So if you have someone in your life or a book or anything that can help you set in those boundaries and how to do them with love, oh my goodness, go for it. Your knowledge of eating disorders, please read. I know that meet with people, talk with people. There's a ton of approaches. It's super confusing. And the more information you get, the more options you have. And the more, if one boundary doesn't work, you can swing into another. Eventual goal of yours as a parent carer. This is huge. Your boundaries as a parent, and this leads into this. You have anchors about your eventual goals as a parent. Why did you adopt, or choose this child? Maybe, listen, I've heard people say, I just wanted a mini me. That's cool, whatever, it's fine. But so in the mini me, did you want them to grow up and be productive people, kind souls? What did you want for them before the eating disorder? Those get to stay on your trajectory. You are the parent in these ways, and that is the end goal. Do you have to get them, get them out, help them with getting free of the eating disorders grip? Yes, but your end goal, you still get to hold on to that. And I don't have any feedback as to what's on screen with me right now, so I hope my hands are showing right. What do I want from my child? Okay, how do they or their eating disorder speak to you? I put this on here because this is throughout the years. I have noticed that the eating disorder beats down the parents so much that their sometimes very loving child becomes more angry, says things to them, and the parent, be out of fear, out of walking on eggshells, allows it. No, you do not have to be verbally disrespected or abused. It is not okay. You have a right to protect yourself. Also, what does that teach them? If it's hard for you in the moment to think about setting that boundary, please don't speak to me that way. Don't say it that way. When you can say it nicely, you can come back and say that again. Those type of things. What does that teach them? It might be teaching them that when they have people they love that they're secure with, they can be disrespectful and abusive. So let that support you. If it's hard to stand up sometimes to when that eating disorder is being mean. Not the kid, the eating disorder. Follow through. We talked a little bit about trust, but this reminds me of trust versus mistrust in the Ericksonian developmental stages. The very first stage of life, a baby needs to learn that they can be trusted to be cared for and fed. Interestingly, we're kind of doing that again at a different age. So every time that you set that line in the sand and you move it, it's risking not letting this older baby build trust that they can depend on your words, that they can depend on your intentions, that what you say, even if they don't like it, is a safe container space. You have a right to your feelings, experiences, and expressiveness. I know the eating disorder gets really powerful and the attention in the family and the tensions, and you don't want to upset anyone. And sometimes I see it strangle parents. No, how you express yourself really does matter, because people who get afflicted with eating disorders often are so beautifully, beautifully sensitive, which there's always a light and a dark. So sometimes that sensitivity can sting a parent, but almost anything can be repaired. My main point here for you is you still have a right to your feelings. You still have a right to, no, you just took that from my cupboard or my purse, or I don't mean cupboard. You just did something that really hurt my feelings. And I feel sad. You get to have responses. Aligning with the eating disorder talk. Here's the thing. As we're going through and working with people with eating disorders, to get off the eggshells a little bit, something that will put them, I think, on eggshells very quickly is things that you say that align with eating disorder talk that you actually mean as reassuring, such as black and white thinking, all or nothing, good and bad type of comments is you did a great job. That goes with performance versus process. Would much rather you ask something like, what was that like for you? Can you tell me about that experience? Wow, you got the best score in the class, but what was that like for you? Versus good job. Because believe it or not, that can be really, builds the eating disorder black and white values, but it can also be triggering and they don't know how to express it because you just gave them a compliment, but it felt bad. Also, appropriate challenging of the eating disorder can activate them. And sometimes it's really hard to see the difference between what's going on for them. So just know when you appropriately challenge the eating disorder and recovery and the things that are going on, you may get really big reactions. And that's okay. Feelings and I statement talk can calm and role model. Earlier, when I said to please feel free to do your work, read books on communications, talk to support groups, anywhere that you can grow your own ability to talk about your feelings and use I statements can be so helpful because it role models and helps them to grow their own I statements and feeling statements, which are, again, in eating disorders are often lacking. Messing up and repairs are fabulous, I think. And I've tried to adopt this in my own life too. Messing up in repairs actually often give these perfectionistic people permission to mess up. And if you're a parent who does everything right, or you wouldn't think you did, but the onlookers see that perception, sometimes that can be really pressuring to a person who wants to uplift and live up to that, or thinks mom never messes up, dad never messes up, grandma never messes up, my guardian, God, they're like perfect. Messing up is fabulous. Read the Good Enough Mothering Study by Winnicott. You benefit by showing how to repair. The kid benefits no matter what age, and gives them permission not to be perfect, which, as you can hear, that probably even supports healing from eating and body image issues. And I'm not saying they're about perfection, but I am saying it supports the potential of healing. Sit down for this next one. Why is this not advancing? There we go. You have permission. I just wanted the drum roll then, by the way. You have permission and are encouraged to not know what they should or could do or how. That goes completely against what it is like to be a parent. And I get that. You've just spent like 15 years, 18 years, 20 years, whatever it is, telling them, oh, you should do this. Here's what you do to make that better. Here's how you get through this. Let me help you with your homework. When someone has an eating disorder, again, a piece of it can be they don't really know these unknown parts of their being, but they're seen as so perfectionistic and they can't really voice that it's really hard to not know how to do the blah. It's mind-blowing. What I really invite you to do is, I don't mean get dumb, but I do mean get curious. Don't know how to do things. Ask them, what do you think first? Get them to start loosening up and thinking about their ideas instead of you simply solving it, because that also nips their autonomy. And if it's the right age to be growing at autonomy, which again is the eventual parenting goal, then that can mess that up. Or how to do things. Again, the goal is at appropriate and inappropriate times too. It can be so beneficial to get them to think about and talk about their feelings, how to solve things, how to do things. So that means a possible change in your role as a parent, and that's really hard. I understand that. Firing or retiring your prior role and revising it may be a way to look at it. You help your person think about their own solving it for them, depending upon where they are in the age and the disease, can actually, in my opinion, be incredibly harmful to their recovery. And how you might know if you just accidentally unfired yourself or unretired, you might hear yourself saying things like, well, you should do this. That's when we might have just undone our new role. Helpful phrases for setting and or holding boundaries. A lot of times as a parent, you're busy, you just react to what, and you've got to do things as expedient as possible. You should do this, let's do that, blah, blah, blah. Instead of reacting, here are some phrases that can help you. I feel, I wonder, I imagine. I wonder about blah, blah, blah. What do you think? I imagine that could be hard for you. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I imagine that can be hard. What do you think? So to kind of imagine, and then if you can add, is that right? If you're interpreting for them, it gives them a space to kind of adjust it, but you've also been sneakily teaching them words, and labeling what's going on inside is that old name it to tame it. What do you think about that? Now, I just exaggerated that and it sounded super condescending. Didn't mean that, but literally take it in, think about it. Before you give what do you think about that? Be curious what's going on in their mind and their body. This is a great one. I want to do this, mom and dad. I need this. I blah, blah, blah. Let me think about that. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. 5 words. If you walk away from this with only these 5 words, I'll get back to you. They can wait. It helps them build patience, and it means that you get to think about things and not react. I'm curious. What are your ideas, which we've talked about? big important one, it's okay if you don't know. Giving them permission to scratch around and figure things out also lets you hold on to your boundaries. You're gathering data about how to support them in their boundaries and your boundaries. So it's a really lovely dance. Let me get back to you is the 5 words. And then if you are in a system where there is more than one of you that makes the top decisions, let me talk to your father. Let me talk to your mother. Let me talk to your sister. Let me talk to whoever and get back to you. Structural-ish family therapy. Please disregard for right now. I really am a big believer in pick, and I know this goes against what many people believe in, but I am a believer in pick what works for you in all these different theories, because it just gives you options. And these disorders require, I believe, a lot of options. If frontline treatments don't work, there's got to be an option B, a C, a D, got to keep going because they're worth trying, option after option. So please disregard or ignore. All of that said, sometimes structural therapy is seen as having kind of a negative blame on the family. And that is not at all what we're looking at here. We're looking at something that observationally, I've been a therapist for 15 years now. I see this help over and over again is the structure. The executive subsystem, according to structural family therapy, is basically the key organizer of the family's systems, interactions, rules, leadership, etc. The one at the top makes the decisions, and that is called the executive system. Now, when an eating disorder becomes present, this is commonly what happens. We switch to the child with the eating disorder is on top, and the parents are below. And so the child with the eating disorder, all the decisions are being made, sometimes even by the eating disorder, because it kind of holds hostage. Then the more ideal structure is the parents on top. And excuse me, Judy, I just got distracted. You're still with me, right?
Yes, I'm still with you. We still have some more time. Keep going.
Great. Well, my phone was ringing and I was like, wouldn't that be ironic if I was doing this all alone to myself? Okay, so the more ideal structure is this. Do you see at the top of the pyramid, the parent, the parents, because that is what runs the house. But when the eating disorder comes in, fear, and I do not blame anyone for being scared they're going to lose their person, scared that this thing that probably showed up as an attempt to be healthy or lose a little weight, then culture and diet culture cheered that on. And then it became something that you're kicking yourself for not knowing how when it came on, you didn't see it. And I really need to say this. It is so hard to see eating disorders in our culture. Please, please, please give yourself grace. Just give yourself grace on diet culture and not noticing it, and give yourself grace on if you are trying to blame yourself for it. There's too many things that interact that flip on the on button, and we still don't really know, even in science, concretely what those are. So let's just move forward to what gets it better. So one of the things I believe gets it better is looking at this, and the child with the eating disorder making the decisions because you're afraid of upsetting them often amplifies the eating disorder's grip on the child. Be so careful of that. Changing interaction patterns. Now, I'm not asking you to change things in perfect ways. I'm inviting you to start changing. Look at your end goal of what you want your child to grow up and be in the world, the soul, the human. And what would you need if the eating disorder wasn't here? How would you get them there? The eating disorder is here. What's all the information you've gotten about what needs to happen to free up the eating disorder, to get them free of it so then they can move in the goal of you as a parent? Well, this is a great analogy. I wish I came up with this one on my own, but I heard something similar, if not this, a while ago. Structural family therapy is all about changing interactions, patterns. So if you, as a parent, you have a living room, everyone walks through it all day, every day. If you move one chair significant or even just a little bit, the whole family accommodates, right? We walk around it. That is what we're looking at in everything that I've given you today to think about. Small changes. I think Adele France says like 1% or something can be changed. That just start changing, gather your data, gather your info, the family, the whole system. Mnuchin used to say, I can work with one person and the whole system changes. That's this living room. Move that chair and the family's going to walk a different pattern. Any change, even better if strategically in line with your goals, can disrupt or change the inner workings of the whole system. No matter how challenging boundaries can feel to a person, it's usually okay to take baby steps. Do what you can. Change is change. And gather data. You are scientists in addition to being parents. Data gatherers, data gatherers. Adjuncts that may help you set boundaries and reassure yourself when questioning. I'm basically asking you to, what you knew as being parents, bring in lots of new stuff, try out new things, gather data from these new things. And some of it goes against your intuitions, as that letter from the parents to the parents said. So some of the ways that can support emotion-focused family therapy. I really, it's scripted, but even if you tweak it to be in your language, and it's only just a little like it still seems to make a big difference. So I'm a huge advocate of learning about it. And Adele France and her team give a lot of seminars for carers. They also have free stuff online at Mental Health Foundations California, Canada actually, which is down there. Find role models to observe and learn from. Can be very helpful. Speak with a personal or couples therapist. Please make sure that they specialize in eating disorders and feel free to vet them. I never, ever feel insulted. In fact, I have such respect when people ask me lots of questions because they're trying to protect their people, which technically falls into a boundary. Attend support groups if you can. There are a couple family groups, like here in LA. I did learn that there's a couple other family groups. I'm not sure if they're open or you have to have been in the treatment center. My family group's open. There are other family groups. I think that can be a really great way to support each other and gain from what's helped other people and see if that might come into your household in a positive way. Find online support. Feast 30 days. You guys rock it, man. Mental Health Foundations. I wanted to make sure you had that email address. There's lots of videos online, educational pieces. You know what, if you don't have any of those, check out Al-Anon, check out CODA meetings. Those can help because a lot of it's about boundary setting. Revisit your goals and job as a parent. Are you in line with your own goals? If I want my child to be, upstanding, kind, blah, 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 well, am I letting them treat me terribly? That doesn't line up with kind. So really check in with values of yourself as a parent and the values of what it requires to get where you're hoping your parenting will set them into and launch them into. Know your own values. If you are asked to treat in a way that is against your values, talk to the person about that, because compromising, I just read about moral injury. Going against our own values can be so deleterious. They're just, such a big word. They're just dangerous. So know what your values are so that you can stay in line with your own. And that also, if we're looking at boundaries, keeps your child safe because you're consistent. Don't let that eating disorder change lots about who you are. Maybe just how you interact, but not who you are at the core. Utilize resources, books, podcasts. There's so many out there. Please make sure that they remind you of hope and that they remind you that you are not alone. And finally, please try not to compare or apply exactly what you hear about others. And jealousy is not always a bad emotion. It's taken a bad rap. It can also serve as inspiration, but please let it inspire you to examine what you might want to try from it. And if your results are different, it just means you've got more options to look at and test out to find your formula.
Alli, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But we don't have that much time left. I just want to make sure that we do have a chance to answer some of the questions.
Yeah, I'm at my very, very end, and I will stay after to do questions. So give me 2 more minutes.
Sure.
Cool. How was that? Was that a loving boundary or was that snippy? Because that was strange for me to do. With content this expansive, a comprehensive 1-hour webinar is impossible, and I need you guys to know that. I hope that these ideas have planted some seeds and helped to remind you that you are not alone. Eating disorders can be challenging and really mess with your confidence as a parent or a carer, so please know that that is part and parcel of this. If you get scared of upsetting your people or the eating disorder, reminder, and this is meant realistically and not insensitively because people here are from all different experiences. If you get scared, think about this. You would rather your person hate you, but be alive to hate you. And eating disorders can be that dangerous. Think about your own life, your upbringing, and now. Regarding boundaries, you've got some own guidelines of looking back at what worked for you. Why did it work for you? How did it make you feel secure? So you've got some resources there. People at any age tend to push boundaries. However, once they know that they can rely on what they can trust, how far they can go, they often actually calm down. So do eating disorders. So you don't have to be perfect. And through boo-boos, you can also learn to repair and forgive, and so can they. Finally, this workshop offers things to think about, especially when you hear that familiar crunch of eggshells under your feet. These are my helpful resources. You can go through these on your own, but things that give subjective experiences of the carer support. These are 3 pieces that I put together. For vetting providers, Lauren Mulheim and I co-authored these 3 articles on Cantor and Cantor. Very helpful for you seeking professionals if you're not already in it. And then my ANAD support group, if anyone wants to come, you're welcome. It's a support group. So thank you. Open to questions.
Wow, thank you. That was a lot of amazing information. So I'll start with a few parents have asked whether there's any possibility of your slides being made available for them. So that was question number 1.
I've broken all my other things. Like I pretty much avoid being recorded. Why not give out slides? Sure.
All right, great. So we will figure out how to post them. So thank you very much for that. Within the framework of what you were talking about in terms of boundaries, one parent asked about kids who want to become vegetarian or vegan, around the time that they develop an eating disorder. So how would you address that?
Well, the first thing I would do is get really, really curious about their reasons for wanting to become a vegetarian or a vegan. To eat in those styles. I would be really honest about, it brings up some concerns for me. And I think that I would really want to kind of challenge that. It depends on the authority I have over them, but I would really start with the reasoning, because you know what, if you get them to talk enough, and I've done this for years, eventually it's funny though, sometimes they'll finally say, oh man, it is for my eating disorder. I didn't even realize it. Shoot. Ah! I was quoting, sorry. So I think that if anything, that is where I would absolutely start. Also, sometimes to heal, let's say this is someone I can put some authority over. It might be a small period where they can hate me, but I need to make sure that they can live a full life and they can have their choices after. But this is what we need to do now. And you can hate me and cuss me out in those ways because I understand that this might be a belief system. I just want to get you on a good health system. So I don't know if I'm just riffing, but those are some ways that I might think about it. But number 1, you start with that curiosity and get them to be curious, be dumb, be curious, be dumb, because they'll often catch themselves.
Thank you.
Looking for the
reference that if your child does not want you to be involved in their treatment, that there are other things you could do, for example, family therapy or other subsets of family, therapy. So one parent asked, would that be with your child's therapist, or would that be with a separate therapist?
Ooh, there are so many, that is so loaded. To me, I would prefer to have partner with a separate therapist who was aligned in the beliefs and values, because again, you don't want it splitting. Like maybe your child's therapist has a family therapist that they recommend, because then you know that you're going to be aligned in the messaging. If you're in a space where there's limited people, you really risk your child. you really risk your child then feeling like you're getting ganged up on, or that the child's the eating disorder is going to say that the therapist is sided with the parents that are seen separately. And that's a huge risk if you're super limited on resources. So I can't give a black and white, but my clinical gut, my personal belief is I wouldn't do that. I try to keep most of my work with my actual client in front of my actual client with the family members, because then I'm not hiding things. And it's that truth. It's those boundaries. It's that consistency, even when it's hard.
Okay, thank you. Sometimes as parents, I guess you would say, tamper with our child's food for the purpose of getting, maximum calories in them. So kind of a question arose, should we be transparent? If we add butter or other fats to our child's food, should we be transparent with that, or is it okay to kind of sneak it in?
Well, is the eventual goal, people are different with this. There's exchanges, there's this. I'm an intuitive eating person. So if the eventual goal is freedom with food, why would you need to tell them? It's going to freak them out. Like it puts emphasis on food. It creates another war. Like if the goal is to have food be food, get them healthy. Like in some ways, when you're that sick, you know what, does somebody who's getting treatment for cancer ask what the ingredients are and what they're getting? No, your person's sick.
I like that answer a lot. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think my fear is that my clients are going to actually see this video, and then I'm like, oh crap.
No, you're actually one of the first, professionals that has ever told it like it is in such a straightforward manner. So I can speak for all of us and say that we really appreciate it. But let me just try to get through a few more questions. What are some suggestions for dealing with compassion fatigue?
Oh my gosh. Self-care. I know you're too exhausted to go talk to someone, or too exhausted to shut that door and shut people out. You have a right to take care of yourself too. And that role models for them. Remember, everything you do, they're learning from. Compassion fatigue is real. We get it too. Listen, at this end of this pandemic, I got to tell you, I lost it a couple of weeks ago because I'm tired, and I'm tired of making hard moral decisions because we're not back to normal, and we're not going to be. Fatigue is fatigue. Do what you need to. What would you do before all this happened? Refill yourself.
Thank you. How do you differentiate between stubbornness versus a stroppy teenager versus an eating disorder? How can you tell exactly where the behaviors are coming from?
Curiosity. I really, if you can just stop believing you're supposed to know what's going on because you're the parent, and just I guess it helps. I mean, I don't have the greatest self-esteem, to be honest. So it's really just helped me as a therapist to be like, I don't understand that. Can you tell me more? I just keep asking and keep asking. And frankly, one of the ways that you can tell the difference, it doesn't matter, is if they're being strappy to you in a way that is hurtful, demeaning, insulting, bossy. I firmly believe if that's not who you want them to be in the world, then you need to turn the mirror around and let them know that does not feel good. Please stop it.
And what happens when they don't share? Meaning, curiosity is great and asking all these questions is great, but what happens when no response?
They're not going to. Oh my gosh, thank you for bringing that up. I should have totally normalized that. A lot of times they're not going to, whether they're punishing you, whether they truly don't know. But what you have done is you have seen them beyond their performance. And I come from years of observations, having my own eating disorder. And Judy and I have talked about this a little bit. Being recovered, I walk a careful line about not imposing that my experience applies to all. It doesn't. I have, though, seen the trend that everyone wants to be seen and inquired about, don't you? Even if you don't want to share something, you're mad at your mate and you don't want to share why you're mad, but they say, okay, you're acting funky. Is something up? There is a party that's like, ah. So Just let them feel seen and be like, oh, well, bummer. I was really interested. And you're done.
Good answer. Thank you. Okay, final question.
Oh, yes, energy. Y'all, I got to say this about emotional reactivity. So much of this, even if you follow this by the book today, if you have energy and desperation, they've got to just kind of feel like, oh, well, I was just asking. Okay. I'm curious. You know what I mean? Like, it just very like not desperate. Oh my God, you have to tell me about that. No, it's just like, whatever. Okay, you don't want to talk about it. Okay. But inside you're saying, I saw you. I totally saw you. Thanks.
Okay, so final question. What are suggestions to have positive interactions with a child that has a co-occurring mental disorder? This happened to be BPD, while also trying to support eating disorder treatment and recovery.
I don't know if I understand the question, because I think all of this was applicable to any disorder. Like, don't we all want to be seen? We all need boundaries. The number one treatment for almost anything as BPD is loving boundaries. So no, I if it's okay, and I don't mean that snarky in any way. I'm like, I think you can pretty safely apply a lot of this, but remember, there's going to be big responses. There's going to be hurts. Safety, safety, safety. Check with your providers. If anything I said today conflicts with what you're being instructed to do, please check with your providers. These are my opinions, my experiences. I think the only thing the entire field kind of agrees on is the 9 truths about eating disorders. So again, you're just gathering data and figuring out for you what you want to try, experiment, gather data, and see what happens. And one time is not enough data.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alli, really, for all of this. I've been a mom for 29 years, and some of the things that I learned were totally new. Some not even related to eating disorders, but just, I think that, you gave so much information here that can make us all better parents across the board, and especially as it relates to our child's eating disorder. So thank you so much. We really appreciate your being here today. And I just wanted to let everyone know that Feast relies on the generosity of our community to support ourselves and our programs and everything that we do. So if you like today's webinar and you can contribute something so that we can keep them going, please go to the link here on our Feast website, which is our donations page. And I just want to let you know that our next webinar is going to be on February 23rd. Professor Glenn Waller, and he is going to speak on cognitive behavioral therapy for eating disorders, a guide for beginners. I know it's going to be a great webinar. He's very entertaining. I've heard, Glenn speak many times, and I'm really excited to have him here at Feast. So thank you all so much for joining us. I really hope you learned a lot. I know that I did. Thank you, Alli, and I hope to see you all next month.
Thanks, and I'll hang out for if there were questions we didn't get to, or are we good?
No, we're actually good. Thank you. Good and perfect time.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.